All right, let's get started. First up, QGIS 3.42, we introduced raster labeling. So what this means is, how do I use this? That one? Yep. Just like your vector labeling, now you can go to a raster layer, go to the labeling tab and set on this option, label with pixel values. If you do that, you start to see labels with the raw values for each of those pixel cells. So it's a really cool way of visualizing the actual data that's sitting inside that raster. And as you'd probably expect from QGIS, there is heaps of options in customizing this and how this is displayed. So you can do things like pick the band that those raster values are actually coming from. You can tweak the number format if you want more decimal places, if you want to show it as a dollar sign or a percentage or whatever else it represents. You can do on-the-fly resampling. So if you've got a really dense raster, but you only want to see kind of an overview of the values, it can resample on the fly. You've got all the options that you get for all the other text as well. So you can do text buffers, shadows, background colors, all that kind of stuff, fonts, etc. By default, you switch on your labels, you might not see them, and that is because it's quite conservative. Obviously, if you had a raster that's got 20,000 pixels by 20,000 pixels, that many labels on your map is not going to be so useful. So you have an option here to say suppress the labels for raster pixels when they get smaller than a certain size. So you have to zoom in to see them. Raster labeling. Right, next up on the labeling, we have duplicate label removal. So this kind of thing is designed for the use case where you might have a data set like this with a dual carriage highway and you turn on the labels and you get this yuck situation where we get two labels really close to each other. Doesn't look so nice for our maps. Now we have an option in QGIS 3.44 for automatically removing those duplicates. So it checks if the text is the same and it's too close. In this case, I've set it to 100 millimeters. It has to be further than that. Then that duplicate label disappears and the labels get shuffled around accordingly. On a similar kind of thing, there's also an option for label margins. So QGIS 3.44 again. If you look at this map, you can see some of those blue labels get quite close to the black labels and it's a bit ugly. Those ones are a bit too close, the ones in red. We now have an option to go in and say, hey, for my blue labels, I don't want to see any other labels within 5 millimeters. It's like a hard margin there. And that would mean it looks like this and it's pushed all the rest of the labels away, reshuffled the label solution so that you get more spacing there. On labeling again, tab stops and labels. This kind of lets us make quasi-tables like this. You get an option to put tab stops in, they're nicely aligned. You can even customize each tab stop if you want to kind of change the size of those columns. Looking into 3D. 3D Globe was funded by a cesium grant. So previously, QGIS, you could do a kind of local scene in 3D. Now you can get a whole globe. Works really well with tiled scenes like the cesium tiles or point clouds. And we also made sure that when we implemented this, it would work for non-Earth systems as well. So you can get a 3D globe of Mars or the Moon or whatever else. On a similar basis, 3D scenes used to work all right for city level. You'd kind of get glitches if you started to move out to a country or a globe level. Now, if you've got a flat projected scene, it works fine regardless of how big that is. You can also edit point clouds in 3D. So there's options there to select a subset of point clouds, reclassify individual points as you see fit. Next up we've got legend text wrapping. I know he's getting closer, I've got 1 minute left. Legend text wrapping, so you can say, hey, my legend text automatically wrap here if it gets longer than 5 centimeters or whatever. And this means that your print atlases where the legend content is dynamically changing, you can set that up so it looks nice. That was funded by North Road, who are pretty good guys. Hey, I'm faster than you expected. What have you got, Marco?
I don't know. Let's see. What do we have? Drag and drop on modular. You can just connect now algorithms with each other instead of having to go into the algorithm and say where exactly your input and your output is. So this is. Then, it's not a core feature, but it's a plugin. And Nyall, did you mention the little hearts, what they mean? So if there are little hearts there, it means that either OpenGIS or North Road developed it, and kind of founded it or got somebody to found it. So that's what we like most. This plugin here takes your XLS forms and convert them into QGIS projects, meaning that if you're using any application like Kobo or Esri, 123 survey or so, and you're using the XLS form format, you can just get them to convert them immediately to a QGIS project. Then back in the modeler, I screwed up the order here. You can now search for inputs and algorithms in the same place. You don't have to previously go into the search and know if you're looking for an algorithm or know if you're looking for an input. You just go search whatever you're looking for and you'll find it there. And still in the modeler, we now are able to generate elevation profiles with a model, within a model for different areas. So really, really cool stuff there. In the elevation profile improvements, you can draw a line showing you where the profile is going through, and if your line is a bit more than like, from A to B or from A to B and to C, it gets really complex to understand how your profile relates to the line that you're going on. And what we have added here is that you have kind of these green sectors showing you where your vertices on the line on the map actually are. I'm going fast. You can now name profiles, meaning you can give a name to what kind of profile that is, and profiles now also respect 3D CRS. 3D CRS are also respected now in the identify tools and in the 3D views. So if you're using CRS that support the vertical as well, then you're all good from now. That is from 340, so a bit of time already. In the form designer, we did heaps of improvements where we could now choose, for example, either to show the field names, your underscores and then like machine-friendly names, or the aliases, which is really neat because it allows you to, instead of NBR underscore of boxes, you get number of boxes, which is a much nicer way. And we added a search because some of you have a lot of attributes in their geo packages, in their layers, so it's much easier now to find what you're looking for and when you want to configure the designer for it. Still on the designer, something probably one of my favorite features that came lately is that you can sort a value relation, meaning that you can get the values from a table and you can sort them by a certain other field, so that when you have your drop-down list, I like it because it's very useful in QField, and you can have the order that you actually want. Maybe you don't want alphabetical, maybe you want some priorities to be there. In the drop-down designer as well, you can now copy and paste widget configuration, which is super neat. And I think that's it for the form. We're getting into the browser improvements. We can duplicate connection and then just change the username or change the schema and save it. We can hide raster tables when we are loading Postgres databases. And you can now, if you're using vector tile layers, before you always had to have two URLs, the one with the data and the one with the style. Now, if the server that is serving the style is set up correctly, which is very often the case, you can just give the style and QGIS will infer the data as well. On the browser, we can rename stuff, we can move tables, but I think Nyall has more on this one, right?
Yes. Thank you. This comes out of his time. Maybe someone who knows what they're doing could do that. Right, okay, browser improvements. So if you are not aware, QGIS has been on this kind of multi-year path to basically move all the stuff from the old DB Manager plugin into the nicely integrated browser, and that's the ultimate one source place for managing your databases and your data sets and all this kind of stuff. As part of that, QGIS 3.44 saw a massive improvement to importing tables into a database. He's smarter than I am. So this is like when you drag and drop like from your project into the schema or a geo package in the browser, you get this dialog now instead of it just copying transparently and you get no choices. So this really lets you customize how those tables get imported into the database. You can do things like pick the schema, rename the tables. You can tweak the kind of parameters of the table structure, like the primary key, how the geometry is stored, reprojection on the fly. You can also tweak the attributes. So it might be like you only want certain attributes to come through, or you want to rename them as you're doing that import, or change the data type to something that makes more sense for the destination database you're putting it in. And there's also options to filter. So when you're copying it, you might say, only give me the features that are visible in the map at the moment, or only the ones that match a certain expression. That is all generic, so it doesn't matter what database you're copying it to. If it's a Postgres, a geo package, a SQL Server, Oracle database, it works for all of them. On a similar basis, in the browser, we've had this option for a while that you could right-click on a database or a database table or a schema and do this execute SQL, which lets you put in a free-form SQL query to run. This has been massively improved in QGIS 3.44 and the upcoming 4.0. For instance, now you can do things like storing queries, so you can have preset queries that are stored either in your user profile or in a particular project. So if you have queries you run often that maybe only apply to a certain project, you can now store them in there and return to them. You also get this full detailed SQL history you can come back to. So you can go in there and see, hey, what was that query I ran yesterday? I want to rerun it. And you can even see like the execution time and that kind of stuff. So you can basically bring that query back and see what happened or rerun it. All this stuff also applies if you've ever done an execute SQL and loaded the results as a layer. You can always right click and do this update SQL layer. That's not new, but I think a lot of people don't know that. So that means if you had a layer loaded into your project and maybe it's like a ST buffer for the geometry, a sort of dynamic on the fly virtual layer, you can go in and you can keep tweaking the parameters of the SQL that's driving that. Right, in the 3D realm again, this is coming for QGIS 4.0, funded by OpenGIS. Nice guys. We now have the option to show annotation layers in the 3D view. So annotation layers are those kind of custom, just draw whatever you want, wherever you want layers. Now we see them like this. The symbols kind of can float in the 3D view and you can get those little markers, an option for callouts as well. This also works for annotation text. So now we have a way of putting the text, like text notes inside the 3D views, and you can kind of highlight places. Whoops, put text in there, breaking everything, if you want. Coming also, QGIS 4.0 is some time zone expressions. So using the expression engine previously, there was no kind of knowledge of time zones. It sort of treated everything as local time, and it was very, very limiting actually. If you're using like the temporal manager, you're trying to work with data from different areas. We have added a bunch of expression functions so that you can interrogate the time zone for a field, interrogate the time zone for a date time value, and then also either assign it a particular one, like if you just want to say this value of 12 p.m. is GMT plus 10, or you actually want to transform it and say, get this value from GMT plus 10, turn it into Auckland time. Virtual point cloud overview. So this was QGIS 3.42. So if you load in a virtual point cloud, now you have an option to see these red or styled extents, so you can basically see the structure of that virtual point cloud. You get a bit more feedback when you're zoomed out and it hasn't actually loaded all the points, because you're seeing at least that there is data there and it's nice and light and it's super optimized so that it works well, regardless of how big your point cloud is, where it's stored. I don't know if the video is going to load for this one. Whoop, okay, it's not. Oh, no, it is, but it's slow. 3.44. So we've exposed a lot more of the 3D map tool API for use in Python. And what this means is that you now have the ability to write in your Python plugins little 3D tools, map tools that work in 3D, like this illustration here is showing this video, where you can basically make a tool that edits data in 3D, but in your own custom way that you want for your Python plugin. And I think it's time for Marco to take over.
Yes. Any Mac users here? Good. Since 2 days ago, we now have notarized LTR version based on Qt 5 and 3.44.
That one deserves a much bigger cheer if you're a Mac user.
Is gonna get announced very soon. It's ready, and starting from 4.0, we also already have notarized versions based on Qt 6. We, as PSC, we really wanted to have something before February for Mac users. That's why we asked OpenGIS to do all the work and get it for 344 as well. So you're going to be just able to go get your DMG and pull it over into application as you're used to do. I know it didn't change your life yet, but it will. New algorithms in the processing toolbox. You now can have algorithms that deal with metadata, so that actually deal with what have you been doing to the data and takes care of it. That's really, really good for knowing what happened with your processes. Also, something that has been there since 340, but only if you were using Qt 6, and Nyall will talk a bit more about it. So realistically, from QGIS 4.0, you will be able to work in a 4-color space. Means you're going to be print ready without any need to go into other software. And that's also coming with 4.0, project trust. What does it mean? A QGIS project can run Python when it starts. It can run macros. It can ask you to do things that maybe you don't want to do. And you had not really an option to say, I want to trust this project. From 4.0, we'll be able to say, yes, always trust this project. I know it was done by Matteo. I like Matteo. He does a good thing. And that's okay. I trust his Python skills. Then he will never ask you again if you want to trust that project. And that comes with at the project level and at the folder level. So that's really neat. I don't remember. Yes, there is a video here as well. Yep. Charting. Yes, charting. You can now build charts into your atlases. And this is, it's native, so it can use the data that you have in your project. It can create feature-based atlases, images that then end up in the page that you need them to end up. So that's pretty powerful stuff. And because it's 4.0, and people were asking, yeah, but what's going to be new? Well, 4.0, now we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but it's mainly a background upgrade. So it's really, we needed to change a lot of libraries under the hood. We needed to upgrade a lot of stuff that needed to be done. And you saw that many of the features that we showed here are from 344, actually. So 4.0 is not going to be this huge amount of new features. It's a lot in the back that allows us to then start building up plenty of new stuff in the future. But we still wanted it to have a bit of a visual appeal, and that's why there's going to be a new welcome screen that been more refreshed and that speaks the brand language of QGIS. Plus, much more. How much time do I have left? A minute, 30 seconds. There's this, that. But no, yeah, there is so much that has happened in the last 3 versions that we honestly could not put it in 25 minutes. Good thing is that Nyall can talk a little bit more now about what's coming. And then we have 25 more minutes where you can ask us questions.
Right, so what's next? The big thing on the horizon is QGIS 4.0. So this is coming out in February. It got delayed by 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, yep, because it wasn't quite ready yet, and we want it to be that. When it comes out, it's great, and it's awesome. So February. I don't know if anybody still remembers the time when we went from QGIS 2 to 3. It was pretty horrendous. We learnt a lot of lessons there. It was very, very, very painful for any plugin developers, any people who are writing Python scripts in their, in their organization had automations built off QGIS. Part of that was not really our fault. It was kind of tied into that Python 2 to 3 upgrade that was just painful for everybody everywhere. But the really good news is the QGIS 3 to 4 transition. We've learned those lessons and we've tried to make it as pain-free as possible for anybody doing Python code. So it's minimal. It's like the only changes that we have allowed ourselves to make are the ones that are directly related to the Qt5 to Qt6. So that's the only stuff that you have to change. And thankfully, the Qt project itself said from Qt5 to Qt6, we're also only going to make tiny, tiny changes. So the really good news is that there is a project here that you can go to that does 99% of the work for you in turning your plugin from QGIS 3 to a QGIS 4 plugin. So there's a Docker container you can get there. You can run that script over your plugin and it gets most of the way there. It comes up with some warnings sometimes to say you'll have to do this a little bit by hand because I can't do it automatically. But it does it in such a way that it doesn't break the compatibility with QGIS 3. So it's like, well, the script will add extra bits so it'll work in 3 or 4 and you can keep your plugin running nice and well for all the people who want to stick to QGIS 3.40, 3.44 for the foreseeable future, and you don't end up with masses of duplicate code and stuff in your plugin. It's very, very minor and it is basically mostly done for you. So again, we have hopefully learnt those lessons and we decided basically as a project, the big pain will wait for QGIS 5.0. So sometime in the future, big pain coming, but don't worry about that yet because February at least it's going to be all happy. That said, when you get to February and you download QGIS 4.0 and you go to your plugin manager, you'll probably only see a small subset of the plugins that you used to see and that you wanted to see, and it's going to be up to you to go to the plugin author and put an issue on their issue tracker to say, hey, can you please do the work to at least run this script and tag your plugin to say, yes, I'm compatible with QGIS 4.
Or hire them to do that.
Or what's that?
Hire them to do that.
Even better. We don't expect that to take very long because of the minimal changes they need to make. Hopefully that rich plugin ecosystem that QGIS sees will quickly come back up to speed for QGIS 4. I also would say if you are running a mission critical application or you are the kind of GIS manager for a big firm, don't jump on QGIS 4.0 on day 1 in February. Like, test it out. Stick to 3.44 for the foreseeable future until you're ready. We aren't tagging 4.2 to be 4.2 will be the LTR. So we're kind of saying, as a project, we think by the time 4.2 runs around, then it's kind of ready for general end user use. Test it for 4.0, give us feedback, bug reports, check your plugins, wait for 4.2 before pushing it out to all your users.